This next question, I've been asked to go ahead and ask this on behalf of the Police Officers Association. Brian Marvel asked me to ask this, but Brian, I'm going to tell you, I have the older version of this question. If you feel you need to elaborate, go ahead and step up to the podium if this doesn't quite get the gist of what you're asking. When it comes to labor negotiations, many contracts contain what's known as Me Too clauses, which require that an increase in compensation for one labor group must apply to every other labor group. Now, do you support these clauses in contracts with the bargaining units for the city of San Diego? I think the obvious question here, and the gist of this question is, if you're negotiating with the police department and you feel that they are providing a service that other areas don't provide, are you going to be bound to raise these other organizations' compensation if you compensate these officers in a different fashion? And we'll start with David Alvarez.
Well, if we actually compensated you in the way that you should be compensated, that wouldn't be a problem. Unfortunately, this year when we tried to increase compensation, we were at a roadblock. You had council members, not enough numbers to support the increase to police officers. That was the situation we were in without getting into too much further detail on labor negotiations. And so from my perspective is we got to work out what the best deal is for the different bargaining units that come before us. And this year we were trying to achieve sort of a grand compromise because we wanted a 5-year labor agreement given what Proposition B supposedly was supposed to do, which was to reduce the cost of retirement expenses. And so what we did is we tried to get everybody to get to a 5-year deal, and we changed it up a little bit in some of the years between some of the bargaining units, but I think it's most effective when you work the details out with each of the units, and I think that's the way we're moving forward now. We don't have the Me Too clauses in some of the contracts. So the right thing to do is to actually work with folks individually, figure out how we're going to strategize to maintain, recruit, retain, and we have different problems with each of the departments, so we got to figure out how we resolve those.
Let me answer your question directly. No, we cannot afford to have Me Too clauses in the city of San Diego. It's one of the things that got us into trouble in the first place, trying to say everybody gets treated the same. And I would say directly to everybody here in this room, as somebody who has stood up, I see a lot of smiling faces, who knows the work that I tried to do on these last labor contracts to say we have an immediate need for our police officers right now. We have to treat them differently. David's right, there were not the support on the council to do that, but I stood up and I said we have to make this happen. And in fact, when that did not happen, afterwards I came back with my colleagues. I see Council Member Sherman's here as well. We said we're going to move forward anyway on the retention bonuses that we just passed. There's one thing I can impress upon you today as we look forward to future negotiations. You have to have a mayor that is going to stand up and say no more Me Too clauses.
Yeah, we don't have an immediate need. We have a long-term need that's been ignored for a long time. And now all of a sudden is immediately being addressed, which is good. Look, if I'm mayor, I value all of our city workers, whether you show up and teach our kids to read in a library, pick up our trash, or patrol our streets. But the reality is the job's different. We haven't had anyone who works in the planning department get shot in the neck executing a warrant. And as a Marine, we paid more and extra because of that risk and that danger, whether it was in the form of combat pay or hazardous duty pay, because we recognize the risk on your family. And so morally, I think that we can't consider all jobs equal. And I'm not mad at anyone else. We just got to recognize the difference. But the other thing is fiscally, we have lost millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been washed out the door because of a lack of attentiveness on recruiting and retention. If we had just been doing the job for the last 7 years, we could have saved money, had a more experienced department, and not compromised public safety. And so if I'm the mayor, I'm going to do what we need to do to achieve those goals of meeting the number of officers we need, of having our attrition get there, and we're going to understand that jobs are different and we're going to treat you differently, but never lose sight that what we're doing is ensuring the public is safe, which is our highest priority.
I love the aggressiveness of our POA. You know, I've been accused of being an aggressive advocate, and I love to see it in them. I will not take the opportunity, however, to negotiate or engage in collective bargaining activity by discussing terms and conditions of employment during this wonderful meeting. But I will say this. I will make sure nobody takes advantage of our police, and I will be an advocate for our police because I believe in them. I worked with them. I know they're good people. And I know that this idea that there's somehow some widespread problem in our police department is false and untrue. But let me tell you this. We're spending $534 million on personnel costs for police. and public safety. Police personnel. That is 364 million for police personnel and 170 for retirement. That's all we've got. The taxpayers can't do any more than what they've already are doing, and we have to recognize that. Pandering to you is not really being honest. Well, let me stop there because I'm out of time, but I'll try to finish it later.
All right. And there will be time to do that at the end. I think that'll dovetail nicely into the final question that we have for you today.